Hello, and welcome back to M.C.McNeel's Twisted Fiction. I am M.C. McNeil, and thank you for joining me again. Tonight we continue with Blood for Flowers, Chapter 2. Thera set about providing the boy a brief tutorial as she called out for one of the members of the phalanx to step up and display her armaments. Here, Captain Elgar, you see each member of this group are the tallest and largest and strongest of my warriors. Elgar realized the myths and legends he had been told about the Amazon warriors were true. They each carry a solid bronze round shield. Thera went over, pointing at the item as she explained. It is 4 feet in diameter. It weighs 24 pounds. There is a small tip in the center, which looks like a woman's nipple. She paused with a smile. This is a special weapon that provides protection, but as you see, Thera paused, moving the left arm of the warrior back a bit. The handle is mounted to the right, and the left arm is secured by a thick leather strap just below the elbow. This allows the weapon to be carried with the greatest ease. It provides strength and great force to push through the lines of our enemy. It is used for smashing of skull and bones. This shield is enough to shatter a man where he stands. Here, Thera gave a knowing look to her troops as they all recalled the memory in their minds, for they had seen and heard the sounds of smashing bones many times. You will notice the armor, also hand-cast in bronze. The breastplate is secured to the backplate with 3 leather straps, which are securely fastened. But why do they have only one breast? Elgar interrupted. That is a good question, Captain Elgar. Thank you for asking. She smiled up at the curious boy as she pointed out, saying, Our armor is flat on the right side, allowing each warrior to move with ease while using their swords, spears, javelins, and of course a bow. This gives us each a chance to have an accurate aim and deadly precision, so that we may have the chance to return home safe with our lives. Elgar gave a look of understanding, and Thera continued on with the boy's lesson. Some of our more dedicated fighters have their right breast singed off to better enable their fighting form. Now the bronze greaves protect the leg from the knee down. Small leather straps secure the front leg plate with the calf plate. Lightweight leather sandals, which are secured firmly by laces, protect the feet. Remember, footwear is vital for a strong army. Cannot stress this enough, she said with emphasis. The 2 thick bronze gauntlets protect the wrist and forearms. 2 large arm guards protect the muscles and bone of the upper arm. Each wears a protective helmet fashioned of Greek style. Only the mouth and chin are exposed. You see, we all wear broad collars of bronze around our throats. This is to keep them from being slashed in battle, Thera said as she rubbed the highly polished collar with her left hand. Why do you all have your long hair pulled back in braids? Elgar asked Commander Thera, as she stood there amongst the well-armed group of strange-looking women. And black painted across your eyes. Good, Elgar, that is good of you to notice, Thera said as she took her hands and rubbed them to the back of her hair as she gathered her long, blood-soaked braids, bringing them down around her shoulders. We pull our hair back so it is not a hindrance to our movements as we fight. Before we go out to make war, we pour oil all over our hair and our naked flesh to purify our bodies in case we do not have the chance to make it back home, safe with our lives. Here Elgar stared at her waist, where he noticed they all had a small leather pouch about the size of his fist. So he reached over, poking at it with his small finger. Ah, yes. Thera paused, taking the seed pouch, hers filled with rose hips. I have had, on many occasions, to bury my warriors where they lay. For as is our custom, we believe if we fall on the field of battle, we should be buried in the earth there forever, in the soil where our blood was spilled, so that we may nourish the earth with our bodies and bring forth many flowers. Even in death, our body can feed the earth and give life. So if you see vast fields of flower appearing in the middle of nowhere in the spring and summer, you may perchance take pause and think of those brave warriors who gave up their lives that day. A lasting memorial to those who have come before us in battle and never made it home to the warmth of their hearth and the breath of life. Yes, we will shed our blood for flowers. You see? Thera gave a look as somber as a watery grave. Then Elgar gave a look of understanding as he looked up in Thera's eyes as they stood there for a moment in silence. As the warriors gathered there, recalling bloody battles and terrible scenes of war in their mind's eye. And we paint our face black from temple to temple to deflect the bright sunlight away from our eyes, as to improve our vision. I see. And he looked out across the field and saw, as the other warriors were gathering their dead and burying their bodies in the earth, scattering the seeds for flowers to bloom come next spring. Thera then continued with the lesson for the boy. Now each member of the phalanx must be very strong, their muscles much thicker than the cavalry or bow people. We feed them huge portions of beef, barley, and beer, for their strength must last all day, for each carries a spear. It is 8 feet long with an iron head, razor-sharp cutting edge. It is designed to fracture ribs, puncture lungs, throats, and penetrate the pericardium. You can kill a man in a breath, so quick, so deadly. Thera smiled wildly as she set the massive warrior back in line, as she called out for her charioteers. Each chariot is built from ash and elm. The wheel is set at the center. This allows it to carry more weight, so you have 2 fighters instead of 1, unlike your people's chariots with the wheel at the back. The last time these ancient relics went to war was probably at the Great Battle of Kadesh. Here an uproar of laughter lifted across the field, though Elgar had no idea of what she spoke. Thera continued on explaining. The long bow was handcrafted from ash and elm wood. She explained the best bowstrings are made from flax, hemp, and beeswax. The shafts were made of wood of the yew tree, and the inch-long arrows were made of forged iron and were sharp and deadly as a tiger's tooth. Thera stressed the importance of this effective war machine. Now, when she spoke to him of the cavalry, she did not call out one of her soldiers. Instead, she went over to Elgar as he sat atop her steed, and he listened, intrigued, as she showed him the finely crafted saddle with the bronze breastplates covering the thick muscles of the animal's chest. Thera pointed out the thin bronze bands around the ankles of the horses. This protects the horse from the swords of men, dogs of war, and snakes. Elgar was fascinated when she unhooked her small bronze crescent-shaped shield off the back left of the saddle. She then said, as she slid out the javelin from the right side of the saddle, "Ah, my trusted friend. This is also constructed of yew. It is 4 feet long and weighs about 1.5 pounds. The tip is made of forged iron, and if thrown with the right amount of force, can stop a man's heart in an instant," she said with a snap of her finger. "Now, the most important weapon we carry is this," Thera said, unsheathing her sword, holding it up for the boy to see, but not so close so that he could touch it. "This is called a scyphos, a short sword. It is 20 inches long and weighs 2 pounds. A forged steel blade, which is sharpened on both sides, so it cuts both ways. It is designed for thrusting and slashing. Cuts throats, slashes abdomens, snaps spines, and amputates arms, legs, and heads," Thera said, a strange fascination sweeping over her face as she stared down at her sword. "Yes, all my brave ladies know the sound of a man dying at the end of our blades." Here a roar came up from the warriors as they all lifted their swords above their heads. Then they began beating them loudly against their shields. Then Thera instructed her troops to resume clearing the dead from the field. Elgar had many questions, but Thera had to tend to the dead. She ordered all the bodies of the enemy to be taken far down to the shore to a place they called the Field of the Bones. Thera made Elgar watch from the back of the horse as heads were cut from corpses, as he saw them place each head in a small bag made from fishing nets, and then hung each head from the limbs of all the old oak trees surrounding the field, which was scattered knee-deep with bones of men killed in battle over the last 4 centuries. When asked what this place was, Thera explained the importance of having a field like this near your territory to discourage unwanted intruders and thieves. Elgar thought he would vomit as he saw the bloody, fresh heads of the men he had come here with swaying in the breeze, next to the hundreds of skeletal heads in the trees picked clean by crows and ravens who circled ahead, casting long shadows on the ground as they swarmed in flight, swooping and diving down into the trees, clinging to the nets with their talons, pulling chunks of flesh and eyeballs with their shiny beaks. Elgar wanted to vomit and burst out crying. However, he knew that from henceforth, after the horrors of what he had witnessed fresh in his mind, the boy knew he had to act like a man out of honor and to show respect to his fallen countrymen who would be brave. He would be brave in the face of his enemies. Thera was informed of the inferior quality of the weaponry taken from the dead hands of the foreign soldiers. "We also found these," Lacuna said, handing her commander a helmet full of black eggs. They had been hollowed out and filled with tiny shards of glass and sand. Thera examined the black egg in her hand. "Elgar, what are these?" "We throw them in the eyes to try to blind our foe, or their dogs or horses. But they did not work against your helmets." "Very clever." Thera took the egg in her hand and placed it back in the helmet and instructed Captain Lacuna to bring them back with the returning army. As Thera set her ladies to their task, she called for one of her chariots to be brought out for the boy. Elgar had not eaten in 2 days, and though he did not want to eat, he knew what he wanted to do didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was that he eat and survive so he could return home to the warmth of his people. Thera sat on the back of the chariot of the two-wheeled war machine, calling for water, grapes, and bread, which Elgar savored as he tasted the sweet honey wheat bread baked with apples, dates, walnuts, and raisins. Thera sat with the boy, yet she did not partake of the food or drink, as she explained that a true warrior never sups with an enemy. "Why, Commander?" he asked. "You must be hungry too, surely." "Oh, yes, every word you say is true." "Because, young man, when you share a meal with a stranger, then you become friends." Elgar wanted to say something because he thought it strange that the bizarre tribe of blood-soaked women could have even the slightest concept of friendship. For they were bloodthirsty and barbaric, but they were well-organized, a deadly killing machine. Then Thera gave Elgar his final lesson on how to handle a team of horses. "Take this chariot and these 2 horses as your prize, and return home to your people, and train hard at war, and we shall meet again on the field of battle, and then we shall see." Thera supplied him with a goatskin of fresh water and sweet ripe fruit and more bread for his long journey home. She sent out a rider to lead him east to a road, far off in the distance, that followed the coast and would lead him back to his village and the family that worried there, waiting for his safe return. Thera, before allowing him to depart, called out loudly to her warriors, "What say you, my fine army? In 10 years on this eve will you come with me and return here to the field of battle and give Elgar the fight he needs to appease his satisfaction and vengeful needs?" A cheer came up from her people once again. So loud was the roar, there came a knocking from the lad's knees as he trembled. "Now away with you, Captain Elgar, until you have grown and returned here upon the battlefield, riding in on your steed. Be it a general that you return to me." Thera watched as the boy disappeared off on the horizon, the sun setting at his back, as it made its long journey into the night westward, as she took a deep breath and headed back to the little path that led her warriors back to their ancient walled home. End of chapter 2. Once again, thank you for joining me, M.C.McNeel's Twisted Fiction. Please come again, and we shall read chapter 3. And I hope that you're enjoying it. Good evening. Bye.